Can you guys hear me okay? I don't want to, I'm not going to just, yeah, we are within, I don't want to, I'm not going to just, yeah, we are within reaching distance. I know. Let me turn off, I'll take off my headphones. Hold on one second. There's a lot going on here. Hey guys, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Hey guys, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? I know, thank you. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to take this stand down so I can give you guys an idea of what's going on. I'm probably going to put a microphone on. And I'll move later. But I just want to give you guys an idea of what's going on. Okay, so this is the location. I know. Here. Hold on one second. You better do it. Go. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? There we go. Okay. So this is the location. Let me turn on dual camera. Okay, so this is the location, right, guys? This is all. This is it's. This is amazing. This is in like the LGBTQIA corridor of like all the bars. This place is called Yum Bar. That's the owner right there in front of us, or one of the owners. Excuse me. So this is the location. Everyone here is waiting to see Hakeem Jeffries. I just want to give you an idea. There's our seat. See, there's our seat. That's where Hakeem Jeffries will, in fact, be standing. So I'm just, dreams do come true, people. Dreams do come true. I'm living proof of it. Dreams do come true. It's all happening. But again, yeah, so everyone here is this. Actually, I've never been to this place. I'm super impressed by it. But yeah, right there. is where Hakeem Jeffries will be standing giving his speech. Guys, keep tapping the screen. Subscribe if you want to. All leading up to the election for the next month, we will be creating tons of content, going to every political event we can for the Arizona Democrats in the battleground state. Yeah, no, this is so again, that's the owner. So I'm going to be sitting there. I don't know if it's best if I sit there when Hakeem Jeffries is speaking or not, or if I'll move back a little bit so I can get a better angle. Because as of now, we're going to be like staring at his feet. We're like 2 feet away. Yeah, this place is decked out. This is even better than I imagined. And then like the screen is up there, so I need to think about that as well. I think I might. They said I can once it starts, I can just hang out on the stairs by myself. I know. They're like, you'll be up his nose. It's like, is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing if I am literally right next to him? I don't know. But I think legitimately, so we can see better, I might just go back in that corner by the stairs, and I might also watch the debate from there so that we kind of have a good angle where no one else will be. Guys, keep tapping the screen, share the live. Let's get as many people here as possible for Hakeem Jeffries' speech. Did I wear? I don't wear special crystals. Like I'm not super into crystals, but I do have one on. But again, so what time are we at here? You know where my table is? Here, let me again just keep giving you guys a view. I am up close and personal, but what's more important is the camera angle, right? Like we want to make sure. Maybe I could do it from just even right here. This might be better. Just get a little distance. Can I maybe get a little distance? But I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. It's real. What's real? Hakeem Jeffries coming here? Yeah, that is very real. Sure. I am going to hold on really quick. Or let me ask. Hold on. Let me ask the owner really quick. I think it might be best if I just sit there and then move after. I don't know. Oh my gosh, they're talking about the Real Housewives. Can you guys hear me okay? Just making sure you guys can hear me okay. It is getting louder and louder in here. Yeah, I think I'm going to watch probably most likely from the stairs and set my backpack. Okay. Yay, I know, Robert. No 6-week ban in Georgia. We are super excited. For as long as it lasts, women can have health care. We may save a few people's lives. I need to set my bag somewhere. I'm super excited that this is an LGBTQIA friendly bar. It's like decked out. This is absolutely amazing. That was not on my bingo card for the evening. But again, this is where I am Hakeem Jeffries is going to stand right there.
You're here to watch Party registered to vote, but I wanted to be absolutely 100% sure that you are registered. So if you click on this QR code,
I check once a week. I literally check once a week. I'm like, have they purged me from the voter rolls?
you click on that, it'll take you to the site where you put in your name and you're able to double check. So I just want to be sure.
Thank you so much. Hi guys. Thank you so much. I might take this jacket off. It's too hot. Thank you so much. Yeah, I might take this jacket off though. It is a little hot. So I think, again, that's where Hakeem Jeffries is going to be speaking. Now, it's too close for the live, actually. I actually think I'm going to go back in that corner where I can get like a wider view, because right now it's just way too close. But yeah, this is such, I mean, it's not as small a space as the fireside chat, but it's pretty small. And Hakeem Jeffries is going to be here. I could not be more excited. This is like Christmas. This is literally like Christmas for me. No. Here, I might. Okay. So again, this is Yum Bar in Phoenix. This is an LGBTQIA friendly bar in Central Phoenix in the Central Corridor. Pretty amazing. Everyone here is excited and waiting for Hakeem Jeffries to get here to speak. I'm thinking of just leaving my backpack here and stuff, and then I'll go back in that corner when it's time.
Actually, maybe move the backpack.
Where should I move it?
We're gonna try and keep it clear because they're gonna speak.
No, I know. I mean, I don't need anything out of it. I can't just leave it here. Like, as.
Because we want a clean shot.
Oh, I see what you're. Sorry. Can I put it under the table?
Maybe or my.
Or back by yours? Okay, cool. I'll put it by yours. That makes me feel safer. Oh, wait. I'm going to go set my backpack down, and we're moving. I think that's where she's sitting, or I just set my backpack by a random person. Okay. Oh, I left my phone. My other phone. I need to get my other phone. BRB. Let's see. We need phone.
You said that Waymo is just arriving when we talk.
What is he going to say? He's the best speaker ever. He'll say whatever comes to mind, and it'll be amazing. Like, he doesn't really need... Okay. Perfect. Hold on. I got to put you guys down for 1 second. Yeah, he's en route now. So. Okay. Okay. When in doubt, just bring a canvas bag everywhere with you. Guys, again, we're waiting for Hakeem Jeffries. He's allegedly en route. Isn't this an amazing space? This is where he will speak. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, he is amazing. Everyone here is so excited. And I heard people saying, I heard his team, his advanced team here, that's here, saying that he's on the way. Oh, you know Yumbar? This is the first time I've ever been here. It's such an amazing space. I've never personally been here before, but I am so impressed. It's amazing. Yeah, so hopefully I can catch the pre-debate remarks, and then obviously this is the screen though, so then I'll probably move back to that corner so we can get a good view. Do I know anyone here? No, I mean, no, not so far. But if I see any, I mean, I know people here who work for the Arizona Democratic Party, but not anyone. If I see anyone that you guys would know, I'll let you know. Okay. God, this is the logistics of it's fascinating to watch these campaign events like set up and unfold. I think he's coming soon because you can see everyone start to like frantically move around. Good. It's going good, Kelsey. Just waiting for Hakeem Jeffries to get here and to speak. And you can definitely, oh, here comes press. So, yeah. Yep. This is Arizona. Oh, it looks like the press is going to be in that corner. So maybe I can't go in that corner. Maybe I will stay here. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Guys, the first time in my life, my Uber driver, and I can't wait to post the videos because he's the funniest person. I posted him in the Discord if you haven't seen him. Oh, I recognize. What is it? Sorry, I recognized another person from the campaign. Thank you for subscribing, Elizabeth. Again, he's definitely getting close because people are starting to move around like chickens with their heads cut off. So hopefully either we'll stay here or we'll move a little farther back. But yeah, you can see like other presses moving back there and setting up, which was the corner I was possibly planning on going in. But I can go up the stairs a little bit too. That's the other thing I want. Because then I could get a way better angle of the debate. We'll see. One way or another, I will make it happen. It's kind of like being a camera person. That's why this is so interesting, live streaming these events. You're like part of it, but then also not part of it. Oh, Greg Stanton's here. Should we go? Representative Greg Stanton's outside. I just saw him. So that's Greg Stanton is also speaking. He's an Arizona representative. He looks a lot like John Kerry and sounds a lot like John Kerry. And I just saw him. He's walking back and forth. So one person is here who's scheduled to speak. Guys, tap the screen, share the live. I mean, listen, Greg Stanton is great, but I'm less excited about Greg. I know, me too. I wish I could almost sit on the ground, but that's gross. It'd be a better angle, though. I feel like I'm literally. I doubt I'm gonna get a pic with him. Let's not get our hopes up. Let's be a picture of sanity. Oh, but people are gathering out. Oh, yeah. Hakeem Jeffries might be here. People are freaking out. It's all happening, people. It's all happening. Let me put you guys on a stand. Oh, he's here. Oh my God, he's here. He's here. Share the live. Hakeem Jeffries is right there. He's literally right there. Oh my God. Woo!
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Never better.
Are we ready to win this thing or what? We're going to take this home. We are so very, very excited to have you all here today. We have some very, very special people I'm going to introduce here in just 1 second. But I want to really thank the Harris Campaign, LD5, HRC of Arizona for really bringing it out today. If you have more people coming, we have plenty of seating in the Flamingo Room patio in the courtyard. It will all fill up. You can hear the debate from everywhere. You can see the debate from everywhere. You can get food and drink anywhere. Well, not anywhere, just at Young Bar Royale. Anyway, we all know how important this campaign is, and we have two very special people with Congressman Greg Stanton from Arizona.
Greg!
And our amazing House Minority Leader, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries from Before they come up here, though, I want to say thank you for being patient with food and drink service. She is from Legislative District 5.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marilyn S. Rendon, and I'm the chair of the LD5 Dems. We sit right smack in the middle of the city of Phoenix, right smack in the middle of Maricopa County. We are the ones that are going to deliver Harris Walz to them. They're the We need your help. It's going to be time to play hot potato. You may notice we have the most beautiful voter guides in the state. We're going to play hot potato. We're going to need 100 people to deliver 100 of these. So please help us. We're going to make the difference. It's not time to sit back. It's like Walz said, you can sleep when you're dead.
Amen.
And now I'm going to turn this off to Michelle White. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Michelle, oh, thanks a lot, because I'm short.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get my props. Oh, thank you. All right.
Oh, yeah, see?
Woo! Better? All right. I have a cheat sheet because I need one. First of all, I want to welcome, I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Phoenix Equality Chamber, which represents our LGBTQ plus businesses here in the Greater Phoenix area. Very excited about that. And I'm here to welcome you to karaoke night at Young Bar. Thank you for coming. Just kidding. All right, so I have my cheat sheet because what I'm talking about is so important. I don't want to forget any of it. So we're part of a coalition called Your Vote is Your Voice. And it's a primarily LGBTQ plus group that is really promoting voter registration and getting out the vote. So we have props. We brought things for you tonight. I am hoping everyone in the room is registered. Raise your hand if you're registered to vote. Good job. Have you checked in the last 24 hours?
Yes.
Good. If you haven't, we're going to do that with you tonight. I promise. We also have things for you to take home, take to work, take to your book group, take to wherever you go in the next 7 days, well actually in the next month, and it promotes registration and voting. So please, we're gonna hand these out. You should have some on your tables. You get stickers, you get postcards, there's a QR code that takes you directly to a site that has everything you need to know about registering and voting. So please, take these tonight and get them out. Thank you so much.
Hakeem Jeffries is right there.
You're really going to want to cheer for her. So this is Bridget Sharp. She is the Executive Director of the HRC and usually puts these fabulous events together. And I'm so excited. She is also part of the Equality Chamber. So, welcome, Bridget.
And Hakeem Jeffries is right
I was a
there.
little nervous about that. Hi everyone, Bridget Sharp. I'm the state director for the Human Rights Campaign here in Arizona. Thank you to Young Bar for hosting us. We're so excited to be here. People in Arizona start voting in a week. They get their ballots in the mail. They're going to start going to early voting locations. It is more important than ever. This is the biggest election of our lifetime. I know we say that every 2 years, but this is important. We can deliver Arizona for Harris Walz, and we will do it.
Yes.
And we will flip the Arizona legislature to Democratic control. And importantly, we will re-elect someone who has been a friend and an ally to the LGBTQ community all throughout his career. So I want to welcome Congressman Greg Stanton.
Yes, Greg!
A great member of Congress before he became governor, and obviously before that he was a public school teacher, football coach, but most of all, he was the campus coordinator for the Gay Straight Alliance on that high school campus, which is a wonderful thing. And I think he's going to do to J.D. Vance what Kamala Harris did to Trump just a couple weeks ago. That was awesome to see. Well, I want to thank Mark Howard. Isn't this the Royale wonderful right in the heart of the city? If this is your first time here, keep coming back and back, because he creates magical places in the city through his restaurant and entertainment locations, and this is a sense of place right here in the heart of the city. And as a recovering mayor, I just want to say thank you. I'm a regular at the coffee shop, by the way. Yeah, a regular at the coffee shop. Look, I've been so lucky to be in service here in this community for, I don't know how many, 24 years. Since I started on the city council, then mayor, and now I'm lucky enough to serve in Congress with the support of so many in this room. When I was mayor of Phoenix, you pushed me in the right direction. You told me, don't be wimpy. Go all the way. And we took on a lot of opposition and naysayers, and we passed, first in Arizona, a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance to support our LGBTQ brothers and sisters right here in the city.
Amazing.
And HRC, they don't give away these scores easy. These are like my toughest high school teachers with their grades. They gave Phoenix, while I was mayor, a perfect score on the HRC. That is something that I am very proud of. And I am so proud to see this community, which is so important to the city, grow and grow and grow in size, grow and grow and grow in terms of entrepreneurism, grow and grow and grow in terms of purchasing power, and most importantly, because I'm in politics, grow, grow, grow in terms of political power here. I've been involved in Democratic politics for 24 years. We used to work our tails off and lose. Now, because of the change in our state, we are one of the most important battleground states in the entire United States of the country. When we work our tails off, we win, and candidates that share our values win here in the state of Arizona. And when we work our tails off, look, these ballots go out in 8 days. The election is over in how many days? 36 days? It's right around the corner. No rest at all. I know there was discussion about making sure you're registered to vote, making sure you vote, participate in the election. With all due respect, that's the least you can do. We need your time, a few of your dollars if you can spare it. We need you to volunteer and make these phone calls to independents, and maybe on the Republican side, those that look a little bit more moderate on the Republican side, don't look the direction that Trump and Vance are going to take this country if they win, and make sure that they show up and turn out in this critical election. And when you do it, and you are going to do it. When you do it, Kamala Harris is going to win the state of Arizona. She's and when you do it, I can't believe, Nate, I'm about to say this, because I've known him a long time. Ruben Gallego's going to be a United States Senator. Ruben and I have been friends for so long. He and I met years ago when I was a young member of council, and he was one of the leaders in the effort to fight that initiative that was trying to ban gay marriage in the state of Arizona. That's how he and I got to know each other way back in the day. Now, the Senate, that's kind of like a country club over there.
Isn't
I'm
it?
a house guy. It's like a sports bar or something on our side of things. We're a little, we fight, which is like a street fight on our side. I'm a house guy. So I talked about the president. I talked about the Senate. But the best thing that's going to happen, our party, people that share our values, we're going to win the majority in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
All of the key races right here in Arizona. Dr. Amish Shah is running one hell of a good race.
That's my district.
And he's going to win that seat in AZ01 in southern Arizona. Kirsten Engel is running one hell of a good race, and it's going to bring our values to Congress. And you know who else is going to win? My prediction right now. The former head of the president of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, is going to
Yes.
That's going to be a great day in Arizona. And something spectacular is going to, because I get to see this guy every day in the Democratic caucus in the United States Congress. I know what a spectacular leader he is. But when we win the majority in the House of Representatives, the rest of the United States of America is going to see Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House. He brings moral clarity and leadership, and the best communicator in American politics
Amen.
is this gentleman. It'll be such a treat to see him leading not just the Democrats, but when he's Speaker, he leads all of Congress. He's be one of the top leaders in this country, and we all are going to fall in love with this guy because he deserves this position. So keep working. 37 days, 8 days till early ballots go out. Let's make sure that we have a majority, the presidency, majority in the Senate and the House. We finally passed the Equality Act so we can bring civil rights to our community. And without further ado, the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries.
Yes, this is my dream. We love you.
Walz.
Woo!
You ready to win back control of the United States House of Representatives?
Woo!
You ready to elect Kamala Harris, the 47th President of the United States of America? What an honor and a privilege to be with all of you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Michelle. What a delight to be here in the great state of Arizona. I was back at home. I flew out earlier today. I get off the plane. It's over 100 degrees. And I'm thinking, I'm not in Brooklyn anymore. But what an honor to be with all of you on this important day. I'm certainly so thankful for Greg Stanton. He's an amazing public servant with the heart, the soul, the intellect, the drive, the compassion to continue to deliver for the people that he represents in this great state. Thank you for sending him. Greg Stanton to Washington, D.C. Now, as we prepare for this debate, I'll just make one or two reflections. This is a very challenging moment. We, as a country, can go in one direction, move the country forward, the other side, and turn back the clock. We're working hard to bring people together. Every single community, they're trying to tear us apart. We will continue to put people over politics. They want to jam Trump's Project 2025 down the throat to the American people, but we're not going back. We're not going back. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to stand up for everyday Americans. We're going to stand up for working families, stand up for the middle class, stand up for organized labor, and stand up for the LGBTQ plus community. Who's in office matters. Who's in office matters. And that's why tonight's debate is going to be so important. The Harris-Walz ticket is so important. Your efforts to elect Ruben Gallego, of course, incredibly important, and to send us 2 or 3 new members of the United States House of Representatives, so we can do the work of the people. I'll end with this thought. You know, when the Declaration of Independence was written, a little over 248 years ago, the words, of course, contained in that declaration, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those words were eloquent in their articulation, but incomplete in their application. America, we've been on a march toward a more perfect union to fill in some of what was left out. Because we know when those words were first written, it didn't include African Americans, didn't include Native Americans, didn't include communities of color, didn't include women, did not include the LGBTQ plus community.
Preach!
Eloquent in their articulation, incomplete in their application. But we're on a march toward a more perfect union. And in front of us is a real opportunity to continue to complete the work and fill in what was left out. Which is why, if you give us the chance to govern in the majority, partner with the Democratic Senate, led by President Harris and Vice President Walz, I can say to you that one of our top priorities is going to be to make sure that we pass the Equality Act and deliver equal protection under the law for the LGBTQ plus community all across the land. We're going to pass the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Wow.
Hakeem,
Let's hear it.
will you say
One
hi
more
to the
time,
stream?
please.
They absolutely love you. I'm a TikTok what?
Bridget Sharp from HRC. Michelle White from GPAC. And Marilyn Rendon from LD5. Give all a round of applause. Every single one of these.
You are amazing. You are an inspiration.
Every single U.S. representative is up for election, right? That's what happens. So everybody is up for election in the House. You have to make sure you get out the vote. Greg is in an especially tight race in his district because of boundary changes. So please make sure that you put your support in the places where we need it, which is everywhere in Arizona. But especially Greg. Greg, you like money, right?
For my campaign.
Oh, for your campaign. But he'll also take a martini from time to time. And also I want to let you know, please do check. I know Michelle and her team are going to go around and do, maybe Bridget as well, going to go around and check to make sure. If you haven't gone on and taken 3 seconds to go to that link and check your status in terms of your voting status, 220,000 people are off the rolls right now, and they're going to put them back on, but you might be one of them. So check your status so you don't have any hiccups when you're going to vote. It takes 3 seconds, and we'll send a link out. It's probably at your table as well. All right, and I don't know how much time we have left, 30 minutes or so?
40 minutes.
40 minutes, well, they were quick. So enjoy, sit back, have some drinks, have some food. Again, this will be shown in the courtyard. There's service video, audio out there. Flamingo Room patio, all of it has fans and cooling, and inside here. Thank you all
I
for
might
being here.
still
We
pass
appreciate it.
out.
Let's win. This.
Oh my God.
And inside here. Thank you all
I
for
might
being here.
still
We
pass
appreciate it.
out.
Let's win this.
Oh my God. Oh my God. There you. Oh my God. There. Oh my God. There you. Oh my God. There you. Oh my God.
Great job. I know, right? Right after I sing a chorus of Hallelujah.
Do you think it matters if I move my chair there or should I just sit on that slab? My chair? No, I can. Hold on, guys. Be right back.
Voter registration with you.
I'm just making sure we have the best view possible. Hold on.
I'll tell you, if you're outside in the pavilion room or in the courtyard, Eric is sitting in the northwest corner of the restaurant. And I think if you want to just check this out,
how do I flip? Sorry. Hold on. Almost there.
So it's important to do to make sure your address is correct and then you are actually scheduled to go. All right? Come on, Rachel, tell us what we're
I
going
need
to
to back up a little bit. Hold on. Stay tuned. Okay. We're good. It's gonna be perfect. I love Rachel Maddow.
Tens of millions of people in that debate, and then it creates the world in which real human needs are.
I wish I could turn my camera. Oh, I know. I've thought about that, Fitzroy. Trust me. I always think of that. I love Chris Hayes. Okay, so I'll just leave it like this for a second. I'm just making sure we have the best view. I couldn't stay. I can't stay. I couldn't stay inside because we couldn't have gotten the best view.
But fundamentally, do you think what reaches to people? Like,
I know. I wonder if Tim's son will be at the debate.
Decency and the degree in which we are.
I wish I could turn my camera sideways.
We're going to turn on each other, and I do think that's the theory of the case. They have pursued it, and Tim was a very good messenger of that core message. Do we want good things for our fellow Americans, or are we trying to drive out people from this country and destroy the rest of our lives?
Guys, it's the coolest part about being here is this is like a super pro LGBTQIA area of Phoenix. This is like the central corridor, which is like kind of like the gay corridor of bars. And I just met the owner of this place tonight. Like Hakeem Jeffries had a super pro LGBTQIA message, which was all very cool. I didn't know that's what was going to be happening tonight.
You know, I mean, it's whether or not a moderator.
Or we could go inside on the stairs. I don't know. We'll think about it. I'll be right back. I'm going to go look at something really quick.
And I think we have to also remember that this is all taking place in reality. The people are already voting. You know, some of us have already gotten our ballots in the mail. So these guys have an opportunity to impact people's behavior tomorrow. Because in several states, people can act on what they learned tonight tomorrow. And so they're not doing this in the context of what you're going to do on November 5th. They're doing it in the context of what you can do right now, about what you feel. And at its best, politics is not about you when you run for office. And the most brilliant thing that Vice President did is that she didn't even lean into her own identity in responding. She did more about her. She kept bringing it back to the people watching. She said, this is about you. He can say whatever he wants about me, but it isn't about me. It's about you and what I want to do for you. That's really the sweet spot that Tim Walz can lean into. It's not because he's really good at that. He even took the nastiness and ugliness and cruelty of Trump, and he said, "We're not supposed to live in fear of them because they're not."
Wait, what
just
footage?
Dangerous, they're just weird.
What is? I don't think she should show much of the
He's
footage
actually really good.
until it's.
He's good at taking the politics of hate and division and turning it back to, but wait a minute, myself as a governor, I don't care if people call me.
Well,
I thought a should be able to get, you know, they need,
I think, or I'm gonna. I don't know if I need to zoom in or move back. I'm gonna figure it out. We have, oh, there was a countdown. I don't know where it went. But the cool part about being out here is like, this is where a lot of the Arizona Democratic like Party employees are. They're all out here. So
that's the only reason that JD Vance has done.
I'm thinking I might move back or move forward depending on what's easier. I don't know. I don't think you can zoom in on the screen on lives like you can like normally on iPhones. I don't think so.
I think the smartest thing about that is from Cliff is just say she's only been doing that, and I say that only to invoke her wisdom and she's
Shuck It followed me. Shuck It, her back followed me.
She said that
we're friends now.
Is so very close to being said by a macroscopic difference in voting in this electoral college.
But yeah, Benny, if you would clip the parts with Hakeem Jeffries, like his speech and then the part where he's talking to us, I'd either link, I don't know, either like maybe pinch it. You can't do that on here. Claire McCaskill. But again, I'll figure it out when it starts. I think I might move back so we can get the whole panorama.
What does that mean to you, and how is that deployed most effectively?
Oh, let me go get my water. I know. 5 minutes, 54 seconds.
Listen, this debate, I think, Alex, is going to be a really good day.
I mean, they're not going to turn the lights off because we're outside, but it will get done.
Who's the kind of person you would like your children to be around when they're grown up? I think JD Vance has been a hard time. That's what got Kamala Harris, was his willingness to be vulnerable and relatable and communicate really clearly.
I know, he's going to be gross.
Yeah, that's why she was so taken by him.
Well, it's the MSNBC stream. That's why Claire McCaskill and Rachel Maddow, like this is the MSNBC stream. Because this is a LGBTQIA friendly space that we're in. So.
And I think if he shows who he is tonight, and those folks that are undecided.
Or I could go stand inside where it would be darker and we can get a better view. I can do that too. I really don't care. I can do either. Let me go look one more time, really quick. I'll be okay.
Essentially, it just comes down to that feeling, that neighborly feeling that you're talking about. You can't let him put him on defense. He's got to let things bounce off of him like, well, I certainly don't do it every day. But at the end of the day, he is the guy that taught high school. He is the guy that ran for office not with a billionaire stroking a big check. He is a guy that ran in the area that was not democratic. And so he's got these skills. And he just
is there someone to sit here? Is someone sitting here? Could I sit right here? Okay, I will be right back.
Alex and Claire in this room, as you can see, headquarters there. We're just a couple minutes out from the sun. We are expecting after the debate.
All right, we're moving. Don't worry, guys. I have a plan.
Both sides are going to have a lot of urgency in terms of what they're doing. Both sides have a lot of activism surrogates who all come with very high profile. We're going to be in there at a very tight spot, and there's a lot of media in there. And
okay. And we're moving.
Again, it all matters, right? It matters what the rules are, it matters who stands up for the truth. Those are the little slices that can live on.
That guy is really high up in the Democratic Party.
What is at stake is a few thousand voters and a handful of states. Judging by the audience and the number of people who are interested in the presidential debate, it would be the largest audience that tunes into a contrast. Yeah, I think
thank you so much. My name's Felice. I'm a TikTok streamer. I look for creators for Kamala. I'm an influencer, so I'm just making sure as many people see this debate as possible. What's your name? Melanie. Nice to meet you.
My gut fully agrees to Walz. I think there needs to be a I think there will be a moment where it all sort of makes perfect sense to everybody watching. That this was the perfect compliment.
Did you say caramel latte?
Also, I would say
That's
one of the
hilarious.
things in terms of your point, Rachel, about this is the last shot. Don't underestimate what people don't know.
Yes,
But
Right.
I really undecided whether the New York Times today who was like, I don't like Trump. I'm not sure
Yes.
Harris is on climate change.
That's actually smart.
Are there voters who
Yeah,
know that, like,
it's moved on to like hotties for Harris, but that's better. I mean, especially if Joe Biden was still running, they should have. I see where you're going with that, Melanie.
to restore like, those basic
Guys,
things
here,
that
let me.
people know that I would suspect a large majority of people watching.
Guys, this is Melanie. She's sharing her table with us so we can hear the debate. Just
You know, here, even though the Walz or the Trump Vance ticket is, we think they're running on the economy, but
it's just. I was out there, but it's too bright. So it's like faded.
The other thing too is that when Trump picked Vance,
W.
it was right after Vance made clear that
everyone's saying hi to
a
you.
situation like January 6th, that there was a violent mob attacking the Capitol, demanding that the vice president throw out the
Love
window
Rachel
and
Maddow.
say, hey, maybe Trump won instead. Let's decide it here. Vance said, absolutely. I would have said we should fight it out. We should have had multiple elector sites. Meaning, I would have done what the mob was trying to get Pence to do. I would have done and then Trump picked up. And I'm not sure, like, I think everybody in Republican politics has tried to downplay what January 6th was. I do think the country at large knows January 6th was very bad. And
I got it. I got it now. To Rachel Maddow.
January 6th is not very bad, but he thinks that it should have worked. That mom should have actually worked. He would have. Had he been.
Is this better? Do you guys like this better?
Exactly 9 o'clock on the East Coast. Just one moment, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance are going to participate in the Vice Presidential.
I know.
It's hosted by CBS News. We will be showing it here in its entirety live. This is the only Vice Presidential debate scheduled. It could also be the last debate of any kind before Election Day on November 5th.
Oh yeah, let me. No, well, it's easier. Let me show you on my second drug dealing phone.
Tim Walz was a.
Yeah, my first name is Felice, but that's if you want to find me. Just screenshot it. Yeah, well, and tell me when you follow me, and I'll follow you back.
Small-time venture capitalist whose whole private sector career and his rise in Republican politics has been.
We've made a friend.
Financially supported by a pro-Trump right-wing tech billionaire. The contrast between these guys could not be greater. Of course, neither could the stakes.
Guys, this is real life. Okay, I gotta take this microphone off. Okay, I'm taking the microphone off. This is happening.
Other networks here in the U.S. and around the world. We have a consequential night ahead, and our focus is the issues that matter to you, the voter. Let's introduce the candidates. Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Ohio's Republican Senator J.D. Vance tonight meeting for the first time.
There's an underscore.
No, it's just a girl.
I'm Margaret Brennan. In order to have a thoughtful and civil debate, these are the rules that both campaigns have agreed to. Questions will be directed at one candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for rebuttal. Then each candidate will get another minute to make further points, with an additional 1 minute each at the discretion of the moderator. The primary role of the moderators is to facilitate the debate between the candidates, enforce the rules, and provide the candidates with the opportunity to fact-check claims made by each other. CBS News reserves the right to mute the candidates' microphones to maintain decorum. We have not shared the questions or topics with the campaigns. The stage is set. Governor, Senator, thank you for joining us. Let's get started. Tonight, our country is facing several unfolding crises. The Middle East is on the brink of war. Americans are suffering from the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Helene. And now a labor strike as 25,000 dock workers from Maine to Texas are picketing. We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret. Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, but the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, and thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have a steady leadership there. You saw it experience where, along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter. It's clear, and the world saw it on that debate stage a few weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. But it's not just that. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, to Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together. Understanding that our allies matter. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed. And as the Vice President said today we will protect our forces and our allied forces, and there will be consequences.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, the same question. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
So, Morgan, I want to answer the question. First of all, thanks, Governor. Thanks to CBS for hosting the debate. And thanks, most importantly, to the American people who are watching this evening and caring enough about this country to pay attention to this vice presidential debate. I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working-class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq, and so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again. Now, to answer this particular question, we have to remember that as much as Governor Walz just accused Donald Trump of being an agent of chaos, Donald Trump actually delivered stability in the world, and he did it by establishing effective deterrence. People were afraid of stepping out of line. Iran, which launched this attack, has received over $100 billion in unfrozen assets thanks to the Kamala Harris administration. What do they use that money for? They use it to buy weapons that they're now launching against our allies, and God forbid, potentially launching against the United States as well. Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, he needed peace through strength. They needed to recognize that if it got out of line, the United States global leadership would put stability and peace back in the world. Now, you asked about a preemptive strike, Margaret, and I want to answer the question. Look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys. I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled. Our coalition is strong, and we need the steady leadership that Kamala Harris is providing.
Senator Vance, the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been, and Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the world more secure. Now, we talk about what, the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to. Nora? Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes larger, stronger, and more deadly because of the historic rainfall. Senator Vance, according to CBS News polling, 7 in 10 Americans and more than 60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and of course afterwards to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need their government to do their job, and I commit that when climate change, I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true. Just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science, let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the best thing to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an agreement because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane, and my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together to solve the governors and the emergency responders on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there so that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen. Senator Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax, and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in Jeffersonville, Ohio, taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current, and that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said that I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years. Natural gas, we got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator, your time is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but folks know, and like I said again, these are not liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that, and an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret? Thank you, Nora. We're going to turn now to immigration. The crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border consistently ranks as one of the top issues for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so. Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build a wall, re-implement deportations, and that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you asked about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember, when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Lies.
Do you care to respond to any specific allegations, including
none of that was true,
is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things?
It's not true.
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis, and the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state, a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve it. Most of us want to solve this.
Most of us.
And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Langford. I know he's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents. Detection for drugs. DOJ money to speed up the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue. It gives him what would Donald Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. She'll sign it. So that's what...
Time is up. even if their kids are U.S. citizens. You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations. Drug mules. It is a disgrace, and it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now, a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president
Senator,
again.
your time is up. Governor, what about our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this, and Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true, don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
But Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been, and it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico, you've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed, you've got hospitals that are overwhelmed, you've got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim, and I actually think, I agree with you, I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, well, it is law enforcement that asked for the bill. They helped craft it. They're the ones that supported it. That's because they know we need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable. But it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree, it should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done. This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this, and you start to adhere to what we know, American principles. Look, I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This bill does it. It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how we treat other people.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status. Maura, thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
I think it's important.
He's trying to
Be quiet. The rules were that you got to do that fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say it's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole.
What is an illegal migrant?
Legal status at the wave of a
You mean an asylum seeker who can legally
not
claim
a person
asylum?
coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process.
Yeah, it's the legal pathway to apply for asylum. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
This app has not been on the books.
Please stop talking, JD. That's enough now.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora, thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern
How
for
embarrassing.
voters. Each of your campaigns has released an economic plan, so let's talk about the specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is one is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As far as the housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota. 12% more houses in Minneapolis, prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then making sure tax cuts go to the middle class. $6,000 child tax credit, we have one in Minnesota, reduces childhood poverty by 1/3. We save money in the long run, and we do the right thing for families. And then getting businesses off the ground. The law as it stands right now is $5,000 tax credit for small business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this, he kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it, it would increase inflation and potentially lead to a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do, we'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best, more people are participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to respond to that. Similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis of the Trump plan and says it would increase the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years, she had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense, and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies to deliver the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts, but if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2016, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
We almost believe you. Almost.
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day one was Donald Trump's failure on COVID that led to the collapse of our economy. We were already before COVID in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression. 9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I made a note of this. Economists, they can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. Woo! Same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years? That's what's wrong with the system. There's a way around it, and he's bragged about that. We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
Governor, you say trust the experts, but those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, we get cheaper elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
If you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were. Look, I'm a union guy on this. I'm not a guy who wanted to ship things overseas, but I understand that, look, we produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship it over, and we saw people profit. Folks that are venture capital in some cases, putting money into companies that were overseas. We're in agreement that we bring those home. The issue is Donald Trump is talking about it. Kamala Harris has a record 250,000 more manufacturing jobs just in out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So if you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the
that's a general
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did, and then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor.
Please.
Thank you, Margaret. We have a lot to get to ahead, gentlemen, on many topics, but right now I want to talk about personal qualifications. The vice president is often the last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there, I didn't get at the top of this. Look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400. Town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, to be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything. Many times I will talk a lot, I will get caught up in the rhetoric, but being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community, and then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier, or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this, so I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in, and from that I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you said, you've asked many times, and you said you regret those comments, and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear, and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that works for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think you'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews, is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration in the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because to just accuse this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora? Thank you. Now the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz, after Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said, 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is, you don't know Amanda or Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to get more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is basic human right. We have seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota, we are ranked first in healthcare for a reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Monitoring agency?
No, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it. I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And
That's right.
I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had an abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families to afford a home so they can afford a place to raise that family. And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy, and I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Or women could make choices for their own bodies.
Well, the question you got to ask, Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that they're diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restricted state.
Her name.
Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a real chance that Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris talk about this subject, and you hear me talk about it, you hear us talking exactly the same. Donald Trump is trying to figure out how to get the political right of this. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said about what's happening. His running mate, though, does not, and that's the problem.
Governor, your time is up. Sunday, let me ask you about that. You mentioned, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national
here we
ban.
go.
I did, during when I was running for Senate in 2022, talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not. Though I know the Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
Well, I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
First of all, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive.
Wow, that's big of
wish
you
that
to
she
admit.
was. and maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Please respond to the thing that made no sense.
This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. If that's been misread, it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things work best when Roe versus Wade was in place.
That's right, weirdo.
The restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals. They get early childhood education. They get health care. So that hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much more of the CBS News vice presidential debate in just a moment.
Oh my God, who's winning? You know, I'm going to throw it out a little bit though. Man on the right.
Is someone on like that? Oh, in there. I was like,
he's bringing the drag queens in. He's looking better than some of the drag queens in our union.
he's looking better than some of the drag queens.
All right, I have Ted with us. He's here from LD5, and he has a few items to share with you.
All right, thank you, young Lars. How's our boy doing tonight?
Yeah!
All right, good. All right, good. Hey, my name is Ted.
Wait, where is LD5? I don't know.
I'm in it. I'm with the double
Nicer. You just moved? Yeah, no. I was born actually right around here before it was gentrified. But I live around like 19th Avenue and Thunderbird. So not super.
I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's David Schweikert's district. I don't know. I'm not familiar with local politics as much as I am national.
We're down balance.
Oh yeah.
Trying to do these things so I can.
Okay, we're within a percentage point here.
Absolutely, especially in Arizona, down balance.
As I like to say it, we're in the margin of error. And I'm here to ask you tonight
this is
for your
we're turning
okay?
in theory, but
so,
this is a very red state.
all of your tables, you have a voter guide.
We're getting
this is
if you had told me when I was born here, if you had told me when I was 10 years old that we'd be where we are now,
navigate this year's ballot. This is going to be the longest ballot and the most complicated ballot we've ever seen in our lives. Okay? This is going to be a couple pages. There are over 15 propositions. There's 42 judges. There's school boards. There's county.
Yeah, I check my voter registration like once an hour. No, I do. You never know in this state.
And we're going to help people
I got a temporary job at work.
So what I'm going to ask you to do on
for
each
2
of your
weeks.
tables, there's also
I'm
a
going to be
QR code.
trained as a poll worker, but I'm not going to be the polls. I'm going to be in
Little
some
card
sort
right
of
here.
brain
I need you to scan this card with your phone and sign up for a shift because we've got thousands of these voter guides that we're going to drop off.
So just like needed like the 2 weeks before.
So the next chance is going to be Saturday,
So I've
October
never worked for an
12th,
election, but I'm excited. It's going to be crazy.
we all have to do what I know.
It's gonna be crazy town.
Well, I'm sure you're gonna see some crazy.
Yeah, I imagine like walking in.
It's gonna be you and the crazy.
What?
Picketers.
You're gonna fight?
I can only imagine.
Alright, so sign up. This is really easy.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think we all just need to be doing everything we can at this point.
I heard Michelle say do something, so ever since she said that, I've done something every day.
Or Obama, like, don't boo, vote.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Or yeah, like, you know, like I have anxiety.
All right, the debate will be coming right back up. I think there's another 4-minute break.
So yeah, I do like a live stream on TikTok like 5 days a week, debate night. I educate people.
Shout out to my staff.
Like also, I used to be a teacher, so like I create, like provide people like the clips, like the educational resources to make their own content. Then work with the Democrat Party.
Everybody but Jeff, he's lazy.
Like yeah, so next month is dedicated to
Enjoy.
I can do.
Yes. Same.
Well, we're open till 10, so after the debate, stay around, have a drink, talk about the debate, share your
When I can't do something, I made a whole series of these.
CBS News Vice Presidential
I post a different color every day.
You should. Those are awesome. I send me them every day. 'Cause that's, yeah, once a day I question.
You oppose most gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun rights. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain
That looks like Mina Harris. I was at
including
an
AR-15.
event last Friday
So
where
let me ask
Kamala's
you,
niece
earlier
was
this
Mina
year, for
Harris,
the first time, the parents
that looks
of a
almost
school shooter were
exactly
convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, in that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust the local law enforcement and local authorities.
I don't know the full
In some
details.
cases, the answer is going to be yes. In some cases, the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just how we actually do it. Now here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartel. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And
because of American gun manufacturers arming the cartel.
Because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase
the windows stronger. We need to make the windows stronger.
And take guns out of the hands of bad guys. It just doesn't fit
only the windows were
so we've got to make our schools safer, and I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Governor, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've enacted enhanced red flag laws, enhanced background checks, and we can start to get data. But here's the problem. If we really want to solve this, we've got folks that won't allow research to be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an Attorney General, worked on this issue. She knows that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to go? When we know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I appreciate it. Christ have mercy. It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly, weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse, or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country
here we
that I
go.
really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is, talking about cities and where it's at, the number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues. Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have a mental health issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the guns. It's just the guns, and there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is one, and I think this is a healthy conversation. I think there's a capacity to find solutions on this that work, protect Second Amendment, protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret? Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to the top contributor to inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more than 4 million homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing crisis. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $10,000 tax credit. They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes, and won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's not handing out. First, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is that we've got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that's a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was, and when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the Vice President is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is you don't have to pay the down payment. Those are things that make it there. Now look, you're going to pay it back, and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we put some of these things in, and we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance, as far as your campaign's position, the promise is to seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with, but the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens if you lower energy prices? As Donald Trump says, drill baby drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs aside from illegal immigration is, think about it, if a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build a house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer where? Governor, we will get to you in a moment, but Senator, where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for national park. They're not being used, and it could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up and building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the Vice President is letting in migrants.
That's not true. And again, you have facts. I guess we agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not trying to find a solution. I was going to ask, though, on this question, are we going to drill and build houses in the same federal land? And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of federal lands. I know in the western part of the country we do. There's not a lot of federal lands in and around Minneapolis, for example. So the issue is I don't understand the federal lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota, we protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water. These lands protect. They're there for a reason. They belong to all of us. But again, this is when you view housing and you view these things as commodities. That there's a chance to make money here. Let's take this federal land and let's sell it to people for that. I think there's better ways to do this. We've seen it in Minnesota. We're able to refurbish some of these houses. We're able to make some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor, your time is up, but Senator, on that point, I'd like for you to clarify, there are many contributing factors to high housing costs. What evidence do you have that migrants are part of this problem?
Well, there's a Federal Reserve study that we're happy to share after the debate. We'll put it up on social media.
I'm sure
actually,
you are.
It really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
No. What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
Idiotic. You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. That in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you, gentlemen. We have a lot to get to. You're passionate about the housing crisis, I can tell. But Nora?
Thank you. One of the top problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, "I have concepts of a plan." Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
No, that's what J.D. Vance
we're going
wants.
to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions.
No,
in fact,
you're
a lot of
not.
my family members have
You
gotten
voted
health
against
care.
it.
I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. It's very simple common sense. I think it's Tim Walz notes from 12 years in Congress. You're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. You think about healthcare, you go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually costs. That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more choice, and will also drive down costs. And we talked about, the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think it's an important important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done, but when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
No, he tried to make it so people with pre-existing conditions
but I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to put in place some better healthcare policies. He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA. And the reason it was so important is I come from a major healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. You lose your pre-existing conditions. If you're sitting at home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that will be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept. Because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They're figuring they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
You have not yet explained how you would protect people with pre-existing conditions or laid out that plan.
Well, look, we currently have laws and regulations in place right now that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We want to keep those regulations in place, but we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now, what Governor Walz just said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy people were leaving the exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president, inflation was low, take-home pay was higher, and he saved the very program from a Democratic administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works. And the question about this of young people or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then what happens?
I think the individual mandate's a good idea.
You should. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
I apologize, we're out of time with a number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America.
There is a child care crisis in this country, and the United States is one of the very few developed countries in the world without a national paid leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress works. But here's what the deal is. Americans sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees healthy. We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works for all of us. And so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as child care on this, you have to take it at both the supply and the demand side. You can't expect the most important people in our lives to take care of our children or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who's an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of child care model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with child care. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide child care in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote child care because look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Sim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks, and one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on child care as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts on this. President Trump recently said
As much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. If President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described, you have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers. It's the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, child care options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortages, we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families. Because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator. Governor Walz, your ticket also has some child care tax credit proposals. Do you think Congress will agree to the $6,000 credit for newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's $5,000 or $6,000, that plays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarship types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with child care and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the workforce.
Governor, thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after the economy and inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and others filed 62 lawsuits contesting the results. Judges, including those appointed by President Trump and other Republican presidents, looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Laura, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. What President Trump said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president, Donald Trump left the White House, and now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by two lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues, and that to me is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here, and I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator. But
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he did. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day, some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there. In Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul and said, we're marching to the governor's residence and there may be casualties. The only person there was my son and his dog, who was rushed out crying by state police. That issue, and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said as a football coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an election. You shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for people not accepting this. And a president's words matter. A president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of settling our differences at the ballot box, shaking hands when we lose, being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I will tell you this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Well, look, Tim, first of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 5th.
Oh my God, we are in a nightmare that will never end.
After this election, of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win, but if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think revisionist history on this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear, and I think there's a lot of agreement. This is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just have said, did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. From speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation.
That is a damning non-answer.
About censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of the government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks. That's not fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah, well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again, and this, I'm pretty shocked by this, he lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he can do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that. Because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
Who's going to honor democracy?
All right.
I'm
rescinding my comment about him having good drag makeup now. Now he's just pulling bullshit. I mean, and I'm sorry if you're here supporting Vance supporters.
Boo.
Oh, I'm sorry. They left earlier tonight. I just want to give some shout outs to some folks who have done a great job tonight, and I hope that you appreciate the service of our great team here at Young Bars. So Ivan, Alex, Gabriel, Ernesto, Christian, Allison, Kyle. Oh yeah, let them hear it. They're all good. Jimmy, Fabian, Clayton, and Jarek also all great. Give it up, give it up. I'm not done. Back of the house in our kitchen who's making your fabulous food for you. Jeff, Sylvia, Bianca, Forrest, Blanca, Betty, Mimo, and Rudy, all here tonight to help you to have a good experience. So whether you ordered a lot of drinks and a little bit of food, or you ordered like water and like a Coke, please tip big. Show your appreciation for all of the service staff who worked out tonight. Give it up. Yeah, worth it. This is a tough, for people who are in hospitality, you know this is a very difficult thing to do. Fill 3 spaces with a lot of people who are ordering all at the same time, and then go, hey, where's my food? It's coming. Anyway, I want to thank again, we are open till 10 o'clock, stay after the debate. We love it. We love being here. Again, thank you to the Harris campaign. Thank you to GPEC. Thank you to LD5. Thank you to HRC of Arizona. Yeah, give it up, give it up. It's up to you to go out and make sure that your neighbors are voting. Make sure that your neighbors are registered. They have until October 7th to make sure that they are registered to vote. Everything has to be right on the registration. So It takes 3 seconds to go to that link and check your registration. Please do it. I did it because I was worried about it. So do it. Make sure that you are checking that and have your neighbors check it. Right, Gabe? Yes, very much so. Very much so. If Gabe said it, it's true. All right. Keep eating, keep drinking, and I don't know. I think Tim's doing pretty good, right? You know, I was a teacher for 13 years. That was my first career. And then I was an entrepreneur for many years. Jenny Vance has a clue of what's going on and how the world works. I trust the man on the left-hand side of the screen because he's a teacher and he knows the reality of the way it works in our world, and that is important. So, I mean, you all have a very favorite teacher, right? Somebody who meant something to you, somebody who taught you something, somebody who was there for you, and maybe your parents, your friends, your grandparents weren't, right? Those teachers are important. Coach Walz is incredible. He really gives everything about it. There's a lot. I make a lot of jokes, but this election is fucking serious. With us, it's a matter of like 12 more people voting in LD5 could win this district. It comes down to that. When Katie Hobbs only won by 69 votes, whatever it was, some small amount of votes. It's literally 12 votes here, 2 votes there, 5 votes there. It's getting people to the polls and voting early. So when you say your vote doesn't matter, every vote matters here. Every vote matters.
It's not about
get them out. Get them out. I'm driving my mom, my 80-year-old mom. I'm getting her to the polls so she can vote. So make sure that you're doing that for everybody and your neighbors, especially those who can't get out. And you know, that's some tough weather coming up. So, all right. Oh, and those are my dogs.
If you don't win, God, what happens then? I might have to go do this from another country. Yeah, I don't know. It just depends, but yeah, the fight is never over.
The policies keep going.
Yeah, and like I used to be a teacher, so my thing is education. You know, like what I want to do is educate adults. I used to educate children, but adults are just babies in larger bodies.
Yes, they are.
Oh yeah, it's the closing.
Miss Dancing with a Star, I appreciate it. In support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as any of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built. From Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift. And a whole bunch of folks
if I have to.
Everything. But they are truly optimistic people. They believe in a positive future in this country and one where our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you, that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. I mean, the idea that freedom really means something. Not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom to make choices about yourself. Now look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe it when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm going to be careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class. And she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night, and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell, and a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day.